Hey guys, what's going on? It's Matt, Trend943. In today's video, I have blog video number 25 here on the PRR Keystone. Alright, so since the last time you guys have seen a blog video from me, it's been about a month. And since that time, I've done a whole bunch of work both on and off the layout. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at the off layout stuff first, some improvements to the channel, and some just general improvements that I've done to make working on my trains and the layout easier. And then we'll come back and we'll take a look at some layout work. So there's a lot of stuff to see, so let's take a look. Alright, so we're going to start over here, and there's a whole bunch of stuff to look at over here. We're going to start with this audio mixer I have over here. And this is a Radio Shack product. It is a SSM-60 audio mixer, and I have pretty much everything that you're going to see wired up to this. I have a vinyl record player, and I also have a cassette and CD player hooked up. And I also have a couple of mics. The one I'm talking into right now, which is right here. And I have another one which you'll see in just a second. And I like this a whole lot, and I also have my computer hooked up to this, so that way if I want to play music or whatever, I can do it right through the output. So it's pretty cool. I like this a whole lot. And I originally was going to use this just for music, and then I had the mics, and I figured, you know what, let's give it a try, and this is my give it a try. So let me know what you guys think on the audio. I think it's pretty good, but if there's anything I can improve on, just let me know. And I'm by no means an audio expert, but if you want to see a video on how I wire this up and all that, just let me know, because I would definitely do one for you guys, but it would be by request only, so just let me know. So we'll go and take a look at the other part to this panel, and then we'll move on. Alright, so the next part to this panel is actually a kind of a audio interface and just voiceover section. So I have a microphone which is just off to the left of your screen. It's a little bit covered, but anyway, it's still there. It's a Radio Shack product as well. And then I have my computer next to it, which is, as you guys can see, I have the audio program running. So I'm recording the audio track as I'm talking. And it's pretty cool. So I'm mainly using this mic over here for like voiceovers and things. And then the one I'm talking into right now is basically for what I'm doing right now, which is talking into it as I'm recording. So it's pretty cool, and I like it a whole lot. So like I said, just let me know what you guys think on the audio side of things. So we'll move on now. Alright, so on the Workbench, I've been doing some things that have kind of been helping me organize my tools, and that way I can organize my projects a little bit better. So what I did was I had all my tools basically either in my drawers or on the bench top, and it got really annoying really quickly. So I fixed that by getting these tool rails from Harbor Freight, and they allow me to put all my tools on there. So I got like my wire strippers and my pliers and screwdrivers up there, so that way if I want to item, just go ahead and pull it out, use it, and then put it back. So it's pretty cool. Then I also added some pegboard hooks up here so I can store things like my LEDs and wire and all that. So it's pretty cool. And one more thing I'm going to do to this bench, and then it'll pretty much be done, is I'm going to have a Lionel command control switch on the left hand side, which I'll show you. And it's going to be pretty nice, because what I'll be able to do is I'm going to run it for my signals, because there's a way that you can run signals off the outputs on the switch, and I'm going to go ahead and use that, but I'm going to test it up over here before I throw it on the layout, because I don't want to, you know, if I screw one up, this is just a test switch. I'm probably just going to buy one used on eBay or something. I'm not going to spend $80 on a switch I'm going to use like twice. So no sense in spending a big bucks. So we're just going to do it that way, and that way I can, you know, kind of perfect it, make sure everything's okay first, and then we'll transfer it to the real layout. So speaking of the layout, let's take a look at that. A lot of stuff on there. Alright, so I've done some work on the control panel, and what I did was I went ahead and added in another power supply to my layout. So I have a MRC Pure Power Dual Transformer that I use for both of my bottom loops. But in a previous video I talked about adding in a trolley line, and I'm started working on that. So I'm going to show you that in a second. But I needed a power supply to run it. Now yes, I could use my MRC. I could split one of the outputs to use one of the bottom loops and the trolley, but I figured, you know what, I'll just do it this way, because I'm not only going to run the trolley off of the throttle part, you know, right here, but I'm also going to use it for my accessories, and then I'm going to use my MRC to power my switches and signals, and I'll explain why in just a second. But that way I'll have even power throughout the whole layout, and I won't have to worry about, if there's a short on one loop, I won't have to reset a bunch of trains. It'll just be, each section has its own power supply, which is pretty good. So that's how we're going to do it, and I like that a whole lot. So we'll move on to the top now. Alright, so I just mentioned the trolley line, and I'm going to go ahead and show you guys a couple of things I did do it. The first of which was I went ahead and did a couple light test runs of the power on here. So I went ahead and put in a lock on, and which is right over here, and I ran the wires down through the hole that I drilled, and I'm going to have to leave the wires like that. I'm going to try to hide them as best I can, but if that's how they are, you know, I'm probably going to only run 1 or 2 drops on this. It's not going to be huge, so it's not going to be that unsightly. I'll try to hide it the best I can, but that's just how it is. So the power is pretty good up here, and it's looking pretty good. I am going to go ahead and try to clean the track again because this track is old, but I'm going to try my best to get it as best I can. But for now, it works okay. The next thing I need to do is I need to buy the piers that will support the upper level. Right now I'm using fast track piers, and I tried screwing them down and it didn't work very well. So I'm going to go ahead and buy the Lionel tubular track piers so that way I can have it be supportive and it'll work the best it can. And then I'm going to build the supports for the passenger stations, because right in this section over here I'm going to put some passenger stations and then have the trolley stop, which will be pretty cool. And then in the back, which I'll show you right now, I had a curve going into the end, but I'm just going to make it a straight end. I'm not going to curve it in. So it's going to be pretty cool once that's all wrapped up. But I'm going to do the piers first, and then I'll start worrying about the wiring and the placement of everything else. But for right now, it's looking pretty good, and I like it a whole lot. Alright, so the other smaller thing I did on the layout was I added this light switch to the layout. And I added this so I can have control over a siding that I have, which I'll show you here. And so when the switch is turned on, the power to the siding's turned on, and then when I turn it off, it's off. And I usually store my subway on this, and obviously I want it to be turned off so it's not drawing power and all that, the lights and all that. So that's why I have it set up here. And I also wanted it to be controlled conventionally with a switch of some kind, and not have it be controlled on the remote, the Legacy or the DCS remote, because when I run conventional trains, and I include DCS engines in this as well, because I'm mainly a Legacy operator, but I want to be able to have control that I don't need the remote for. Like if I'm running the command equipped engine, that's different, but like a switch or an accessory or a power like this, I want to just be able to turn it on and off and not have to grab a remote. Because if I'm running a conventional engine, like with just the transformer handles or something like that, I don't want to have to grab a separate remote just to turn a siding on and off or throw a switch or whatever. It's also the same reason why I have these switch controllers, which we'll talk about next, mounted on the side here too. So let's talk about that. Alright, so this is the big news for today's layout update, and that is that I finally added in my switches for my engine service facility, and I really like the way this is turning out. It's really awesome to be able to not only store these engines, but to also actually run them. I can just pull them out, and I'll show you guys some running action at the end of this video here, and you guys can see it in action, but I'll show you guys some pictures while I'm talking here. So you guys can kind of see in this photo where we started off as, at least in one particular section, and then right here you can see where we ended up. So it's really awesome, and I really like the way it's turning out. So eventually, like I said, I'm going to do signals, and I'm going to wire them to the switches, so that way when I throw the switch, the lights on the signal change. And I'm going to power them off of my MRC transformer, like I mentioned a minute ago. And I'm going to power the switches and signals separately from all my other buildings, like the passenger station and the 3-story buildings that you see to the left of your screen. And that is because when I have a short, which if I make one here, you can see that the buildings flicker and it just looks really stupid, and the switches don't do anything, they just go along for the ride. So I'm going to power the buildings separately so that way when there is a short, you're not really going to notice it. So that's going to be that. And the same reason again why I mentioned about that light switch, I have the manual switch controller set up so when I'm running MTH engines or conventional engines, I'll be able to throw the switches without having to use the Legacy remote. These are the command equipped switches, but I also have the manual controller set up as well. So that's pretty cool, and I figured you guys would like that. So like I said, we'll go ahead and do some running with it at the end of the video, but I'll show you guys this last switch, and then I think that'll do it for today's video. Alright, so the last thing for today's blog video is another switch that I added to the layout, and this switch here is a command one, just like the other ones you guys saw. And this one replaces a manual switch that I had in the same spot, and this one leads to my siding that I showed you a few minutes ago. And I like it now that it's a command switch, because I had the manual one and I always forgot to throw it after I pulled the train out, so it got kind of annoying. So now it's a command one that I can throw it from the remote or with the manual controller, which is kind of nice. And also, with all my switches now being command control, I have a route set up on the legacy remote, so I can push a button and all the switches will default to the normal position, which is kind of cool. And all these now, except for one set of crossovers, have the manual controllers connected to them. Eventually the crossover set will have the controllers connected, but for right now I'm actually out of them because I disassembled and threw away the other ones. I don't know why I did that, but I did. But when I get some more switches, which I'll talk about in the next blog, because I'm going to give you guys some more info on this engine service facility and kind of what it's going to look like eventually in the next blog, so stay tuned for that. But I'm going to eventually, once I get the other switches, I'm going to install the manual controller for the crossover I have now, and then later on down the line when I get more switches I will work on that as the time permits. So, but that's about it for today's blog video, guys. I'm going to leave you guys with some train running. I know I haven't done that in quite a while. I'm going to run the engine service facility, so I'm going to pull some engines out and back some engines in and just have some fun. So that's going to do it for today's blog. So like I said, stay tuned for the next blog where I talk more about the engine facility and how all that works and how I got it wired and all that. So, but that's going to do it for today's blog. So take care, guys. We'll see you. I'm Matt, Trend over 943.
Chicago Northwestern 1995. Your train is underway. Over. All right, 1995. Out.